This time on Ask Rad Rat, we're talking about skateboards made out of aluminum, why I feel I probably should have been goofy, and what advice I would give to myself in the past. So let's get into it. Welcome back to Rad Rat video channel. We can learn new things about skateboarding as often as I can do it. Been making some more videos recently. Hopefully things are continuing to slow down. But I got a handful of questions for you today. These are all from radratvideo.com where you can submit your own questions. Let's get right into it. First one is from Lars. He says, thoughts on aluminum boards? They're resistant to water, don't bend or chip. They look cool in my opinion. Never used one though. So boards made out of various kinds of metals were not popular, but they were a little bit bigger back in the day. I remember in the mid-2000s I would see more companies that were making them, and I also haven't tried one. But that's because I've heard of how dangerous they are. So if you think about how much it hurts when you get a shinner from a wooden board, imagine if your board is solid metal, doing a 360 shove it and bam, it hits your shin, like you're done for. It's going to cause a lot of damage. The other thing is, when you drag your tail a lot, your tail gets to be pretty sharp. You can get cut on just sharpened wood. Imagine if it's razor sharp aluminum. Now you're in serious trouble. So they are kind of an interesting thing, if you're just going to cruise around or you're starting to learn a couple basic tricks. You're not doing anything too dangerous or too crazy. They might have been a decent option, but not for anyone who really is into serious tricks and stuff. So I think that's probably why they never caught on in any big way. But I think it'd be cool to have sort of a metal inserts into your boards, maybe like titanium or something. Like a thin strip that follows the shape to keep the tails stiff and everything. But then they're only this big and then this much wood on each side. That'd be kind of cool, but I don't think that's the way things are going. It's getting more into, carbon fiber and polymers and that kind of stuff. So they exist. I'm not sure if anyone's still making them, but I wouldn't recommend risking it. Okay, next question is from Andrew. And he says, hey Rad Rat, I have seen in the background of your videos that you like Spider-Man, and I know that in Tony Hawk 2 you play as Spider-Man. You also said that the Rodney Mullen cutscene got you into skateboarding in real life. So did you hear Spider-Man was in the game and you checked it out, or am I just crazy? Then he says, he loves me, no homo. At my old apartment, I did have a Spider-Man comic hanging up all the time, so that's why he says that if you're new to the channel. I'm still working on a new set. I'm working on everything in the house right now, but so yeah, I've been a Spider-Man fan for a while. I played the Spider-Man game on PS1 that the same guys that made Tony Hawk made, but I did not get into the series that way. So my history with the Tony Hawk series, I played the first one at a friend's house, very briefly in his basement. Played the school one, but I didn't know the controls or anything. I just did a couple of real basic tricks. Looked interesting, but it didn't really grab my attention. I played Tony Hawk 2 at a friend's house. So he bought it. This was at an age where you're not old enough to drive yet, and you're in school. So we wouldn't see each other that often because we lived pretty far apart. We had both moved. So I would see him like Christmas break, summer break, that kind of stuff. And so I would go over there and spend the night, and we'd have to catch up on months of what we've been up to. And so he had that game. We played the crap out of it that night. And I think he had already started skateboarding, but I didn't know yet. And I took the game home with me, borrowed it, and I loved it so much, especially seeing the cutscenes and all that stuff, like you mentioned, that I started skateboarding too. And then later we found out that the other one had also started skateboarding, and we skated together. But it was kind of a weird time. I don't know if it was just me or if this was how it just was back then, but skateboarding was kind of an embarrassing thing to do. You wouldn't want people to know that you skated. Like I would try to walk out somewhere with my skateboard and I'd be embarrassed that people would see that I was going to go skate. Maybe it was just me, but like we didn't know that other people skated. But the Tony Hawk games kind of made it a little bit more acceptable and everything. So that's how that happened. It had nothing to do with Spider-Man. That was just coincidence. Next question is from Daniel. You mentioned in your Skate 2 review you probably should have been goofy. Why is that? That's kind of an interesting thing because I'll never know the answer, whether I should have been or not. It's weird that one of the first things you decide in skateboarding is what stance you are supposed to be for the rest of your time skateboarding. And you don't know anything yet, so you just kind of pick something. And so, like I just mentioned, I got into skateboarding through the Tony Hawk games, specifically through the ending videos, and the one that stood out to me most was Rodney Mullen, who was regular. So I think there's a decent chance that I just started to skate regular because I didn't know anything, and I might as well do what the guy I like most does. But I'm not entirely sure. But the reason why I said that is because right around the time I was writing that review, I had filmed the trick tip 4 360 flips that I did. Watch that right here. And one of the things I thought would be cool would be if I did some normal and some switch, because I have a completely different technique. And so I could show you like two different methods in the same video. And I ended up not doing that because they weren't really flowing. I tried to do a few and I wasn't landing them. Skateboarding is a million times harder for me on camera. I hate it. Like, I can land a trick a couple of times, turn on the camera, spend a half hour and not land one ever again. But anyway, it was a thought until I actually started trying it. But the thing that was so weird to me is like, the reason why my trick tip videos are so long and so in-depth is because all that stuff is going on in my mind as I'm about to do the trick. So when I'm, setting my feet up and getting ready to try a 360 flip, I'm thinking about the exact angle. I'm thinking about where this foot is and where my pressure is and where my balance is. All this stuff is like calculating in my mind. And that's the only way I can make the board do the thing I want to do. And then, once the board's flipping, it feels normal and natural and I can land it and I'm fine. But with switch is the exact opposite. In switch, if I want to do a tray flip or like a hard flip or anything that is not 100% consistent for me, normal, switch, like I just kind of, if I'm going to do a switch tray flip, let's say, put my front foot here-ish or so, back foot, somewhere on the tail, like right about there. And I just kind of think about it. I mean, I don't think about it. I just kind of feel it out. Boom, the board flips and it does a 360 flip like every time. The problem for me though, why you don't see me just being a goofy skater, is because of the landing part. It still feels switch, it feels backwards, it feels unnatural and weird. So even if the board flips perfectly, I'm like, it feels awkward, and I'll try to catch it, and then I'll land and do the splits and like fall a lot more often. So in my normal stance, I can think really hard, try as hard as possible, and land a trick fine. Or in switch, I can do a trick nearly perfectly, but then never land it. So I feel like if I got over that switch feeling wrong, feeling like I'm going backwards in the wrong way and all that stuff, if I could fix that part, skateboarding would have been a lot easier. So my question is whether I had started goofy, if I would be in a better spot, or maybe it would have just been the opposite. So where switch would have still flipped easier. Because there's other reasons. Maybe it's the techniques that I learned. I was able to teach myself how to do switch stuff because I already knew how to do it versus trying to figure it out, the first time. I don't know for sure, but that's why I was saying that. I do want to work on my switch more because I think I have a lot more potential in switch than I do in normal, but I don't know. That might be my weird thing, or maybe that's common. Last question is from Silas. Back when I was a teen, I used to be very upset that I couldn't do tricks as easily as the ones I used to watch in Tony Hawk. And by the time I quit skating, I was 15, and I thought I wasn't learning fast enough, since I knew how to land around 7 or so tricks after 2 years. Looking back now, I realized I was trying to move up too fast. Now my pacing wasn't that bad, especially considering the first year of me skating, my shape didn't even have concave yet, just a cheap board. So if I could advise my young self, my advice would be to be patient and keep at it because I was doing good. What's the most important tip you would give to your younger self in regard to skateboarding? So for me, one of the biggest things that I did wrong when I was first getting into skateboarding, 1, 2, 3, 4 years in, was acting like I was a pro. Not in skill level, but just in like treating it like a job. Going out and trying to film and trying to make sure I get that ender and like throwing myself at a trick for hours to try to get it on camera and stuff like that. And at the time, I thought I was making really good parts and everything, but looking back on it later, it's the footage is not good, first of all, but second of all, it slowed me down a lot. So one trick that came to me pretty easily back in the day was a kickflip backside 5-0. It just kind of flowed, like the board flips kind of backward with a kickflip anyway, so you can get into it, and I got decently good at them, but so I would land the trick a couple of times, not consistent with it, but I can do it reasonably often. So what I should have been doing is getting better at it, doing it faster, doing a longer grind, doing it on something higher, practicing the trick, getting really good at, trying different spots, trying it on different types of obstacles, rails instead, include boxes and rails and other stuff. Maybe I can eventually do it down a little hub at a skate park. Maybe I can take it to this, take it to that. and that would be a better way to progress. But what I did was I would just try to push it. So, okay, I can do a kickflip 5-0, I can grind a foot and a half, so I'm gonna try to really quick do a shove it out. I'm gonna try, really quick, switch to a tail slide and land it real quick, that type of thing. And so I have all this footage of me doing tricks that are, on paper, sound like they would be pretty good, but when you watch them, it's just like, slow and sketchy and weird. And that's just because I was pushing myself so much beyond what I could do. Every trick that I have on video is after an hour or more of trying, and it's sketchy. But it's sketchy because it took me an hour and I'm exhausted, But looking back on it now, I see a lot of my old footage all the time for the channel because I'll mention a trick and I'll just look up to see if I have a clip of it real quick, that type of thing, and it's always terrible. It would have been so much better if I didn't take filming seriously, but I just tried to have more fun and be more relaxed and try to naturally progress in skateboarding, and then filming, tricks that I could do rather than trying to push it so much. So for me, that was the biggest thing, and I think that is probably good advice for most people. You might have worse video parts in the time, you might think, but you're actually going to progress a little bit better as well. So I don't know, something to keep in mind if you are just getting started. His tip too, don't try to compare yourself to video games, of course, or anyone on Instagram and stuff now might be more likely. Just try to go at your own pace. Keep in mind that if someone's huge and famous in skateboarding, it's because they're exceptionally talented. It's okay to not be able to do every trick immediately. So those are my thoughts on that. If you have more questions, go to radratvideo.com and submit it on the forum right there on the homepage. I also sell shirts there. A lot of them are getting close to being sold out now. So if you are interested, check that out sooner than later. But until next time, here's some more videos you can check out. Also tap my logo right there on screen to subscribe and stay up to date with everything. Thanks for watching.